what you have to say. The fact of the matter is that we've got the oldest nuclear power station in France and the newest that hasn't even been started yet with the same problem, and both of them with the manufacturer culpable to fraudulently counterfeiting the inspection reports. Now, when North Anna 2 got its replacement vessel head, it came with paperwork from the same manufacturer.
Correct.
It does come with paperwork.
It did.
The falsified records concerns me more on this piece than the carbon segregation.
The only way you can check that paperwork, though, is what these other regulators have done, and that's require the operator to take a sample from a surplus section of the component, run it through an optical emission spectrometry.
Yeah.
And thereby, what they're doing is they're exciting the elemental makeup of this piece of metal.
Correct.
and you get some photon emissions that they can then read by color.
Correct.
And
well, every element has its own unique spectral signature. So
enough
if they can take
so
a look at carbon, they can proportion it. They can find out.
They can see carbon, copper.
Absolutely.
They can see the entire. It's just a test that would offer the confidence.
Correct.
that I believe there should be some sense of crisis, if not only because the manufacturer's been caught cooking the books.
Right. I wanted to ask you about the comment that you just made in that regard. You said you're more concerned about the falsified documents than you are about the carbon content specifically. Is that because you think the carbon content setting the requirements that are set too stringently?
Briefly trying to brief up on this, because I think I started hearing about this personally in November, December timeframe. But it's been going on longer than that, as you point out. But from what I have been reading, the carbon segregation and the carbon content is inherent somehow to this forging process. There's different forging processes even Crusoe Forge would use. Therefore, two components coming out of Crusoe Forge could be manufactured and forged differently. Only one of those that I know of has this carbon issue. The reason I think what I've been reading is we have more assurance in the U.S. is because our components have been specified and made with a forging process, manufacturing process that isn't known to have the carbon issue. That's me speaking from what I think I'm reading. I'm waiting for the report to come out.
I just wanted to mention that we're talking about from the 17 reactors, different parts. So we've got pressurized issues, we've got pressure reactor vessel heads. So we're not talking about just one
There's
part.
different components.
Different components that are affected.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's more than
But
just
the main focus for North Anna, agreed, I'm not disagreeing, but the major focus for us at least is the reactor head at this time.
Right. But again, okay, so here's the NRC document, March 17, 2003, based on the review of the documentation assembled in the reconciliation data package and the RCCM manufacturing and fabrication data package, it appears that North Anna Unit 2 replacement reactor pressure vessel head manufactured by Framatome A&P using the 1993 edition through the 1996 addenda of the French RCCM code is essentially equivalent to the head manufactured by Framatome A&P using the ASME Section 3 design code. So finally, the inspectors noted that the significance of the ANI assigned to the Framatome A&P Chalon facility attested by signature on the code data report on January 24, 2003 that, quote, to the best of my knowledge and belief, the contents of this report are accurate and as far as possible are equivalent to the requirements of Section 3, Division 1 of the ASME code and the scope of the work order. So it sounds to me like there was a like they were equivalent, the codes were equivalent. Okay, so again, I would appreciate, maybe some fine tuning here on your comment that we can reliably view two separate manufacturing streams coming out of the same facility, and that are because North Anna, it sounds to me like it was the French code that they were going by, and an equivalent to the ASME. So,
Well, I think we'll have to follow up on that as well to see if there was a distinguishment between the two. We'll take a look at that and try to get back to you folks.
yeah, I'll give you a card.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I have my card too, and I'll be happy to provide it to you. Again, to summarize, I think there's two issues here to kind of follow up. There's the material issue that's kind of, that in some ways is contained. It's contained to a handful of components. What's more disconcerting, I think this is what Anthony was getting at, is if the allegations are true, the assertions are true, that there was falsification and fabrication of documents.
Well, it was true at Fessenheim.
I'm not familiar with it,
Yeah.
so I mean, I'll go with your word on that if there was falsification, that's kind of more of an unbounded problem. That is, you have in a corporation within an industry that has very high standards to protect the public health and safety. If you have an organization that's actually resorting to that kind of level of falsification, that's a very disconcerting thing, because it's relied upon that those in the industry that produce items and equipment produce it at the level of quality that's both required and that they say they do. And I think that's what, Anthony, you're getting at, is that if you have one industry component doing that, is that an issue that requires even greater investigation on the part of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission in terms of criminal issues. And when you start getting into the criminal aspect, literally it is a criminal aspect, at that point I think there are definitely different organizations that speak to, Office of Enforcement, for example, that have that ability, and frankly, it gets into other agencies, federal law enforcement. So I think right now my concern is North Anna operating safely, and in light of this reactor head and the other components. Right now, I see no indication in my routine inspections, part of my reactor oversight process, that there is any serious degradation going on. So that is consistent with what I'm being told, is that there's no immediate safety concern. But boy, I'm watching it. I'm watching everything every day. The minute I drive onto the site, the minute I leave, my eyes are going and I'm looking and asking questions. I come home at night and my wife goes, "Why are you so tired?" Well, I'm tired because even before I get to the plant till the minute I leave, and sometimes I go in the middle of the night, I'm looking, I'm asking questions. Does that look right? Is that operating right? Does that make sense? Because I take my job seriously about protecting the public health and protecting my own life and my own interests in the area. I own property here. I want to retire in this area. So I drink the water. So I really don't want it tritiated. So I have a vested interest in the safe operation of this power plant, much as many of the licensee, if not all the people at the plant. They want to retire. A plant that gets shut down, or God forbid has an event that it can no longer operate, that kind of cuts into your retirement plans of being able to finish up at the plant. So I think the licensee has demonstrated to me a genuine concern to, again, live by their license, operate the plant in a safe fashion for the area. And talking with them about this immediate issue, they're very concerned as well, and they want to get down to the crux of it. And again, they have potential causes of action, which, this could be a big issue.
So what would be the harm if the state was to ask for, if Virginia was to ask for the same level of enhanced inspection of the vessel head that Connecticut asked of the pressurizer.
If the people, as represented by the legislature in the state of Virginia, feels that that's a necessary
Or it would be
action,
the DEP. in this-
or acting on behalf of the people,
Yeah,
then, we would, the NRC, of course, would
you wouldn't stand in the way of
we're not
that.
going to stand in the way of that.
No, of course. I mean, it would offer that much more confidence in your view of how that plant's being operated. Do we know when there was the last time a UT exam happened of that component? Could I ask that as a question?
That's a good question.
to get an answer?
I think I know the answer, but I don't want to say something wrong.
If I could get an
And I'd be
answer.
happy to get back to
And,
you.
and just give it to the state while you're at it. For, I think we all would like to share in the confidence that the level of inspections
Understand.
are,
Right. Well, this starts getting into a policy issue of the NRC. Of course, I don't make policy. That's at the commissioner level, whether they would politically advocate or actively advocate a state legislature to call upon such a thing. You're asking me, the senior resident inspector, again, if the people of Virginia want that kind of thing to be performed and the legislature can legally require it, then it's up to the people of Virginia and their legislature and their regulatory bodies to do so.
Or it's up to the NRC main headquarters to demand.
Well, the NRC, possibly.
Well, I mean, ultimately, if it's,
that's what ASN did. I mean, the French regulator
Understand.
requested these inspections, and not just the enhanced inspection with the ultrasonic test to look for cracks. They wanted to know what the carbon content is. So the level of confidence is that much more there. if you
Ultimately,
know
the
it, if you
NRC
know-
could put an order out
Yeah.
regarding that.
Right.
Whether it's required or necessary. I accept your, and I can empathize with your position that you feel that that's the case. There's others that may not feel as concerned or alarmed. Whether they're right or you're wrong or vice versa, I'm not in a position to evaluate. It's honest people wanting to do the right thing, and honest people sometimes having honest differences of opinion. So your concern, I think, is an important one. I think people in the NRC and other areas need to hear it. But we have a lot of very capable material engineers and metallurgists in the NRC and other agencies sometimes we'll go to, like
Right.
DOE.
I believe that.
And so, to answer your question, if you, the public, want the Virginia to do that, the state of Virginia, then by all means you're free to do so.
What harm,
Likewise,
it would only give us more confidence.
can't argue with that. It's a data point, right? You would know for sure what your carbon
Right.
componentry would be.
Well, I agree too, because even the UT, I think, is going to be beneficial, but even y'all's own white paper on improving effectiveness of reliability of non-destructive examination pretty much shows that some years back we missed the issues and the cracks we had here at North Anna, and they did the UT testing. So, in all reality, UT testing would be good. It'd be a first step, but ultimately, I think we're going to need a further test that really can show the content of the steel. And thank you, Greg, for writing me back and for you passing the message over
Of course.
as it goes for the. I'm typically, when I come to these meetings, the radioactive effluence report is usually been made available where I can bring it, where I can ask questions.
Right,
It was not available.
right,
And I wrote you back to show you the other
right.
dates
Understand.
where typically I can view that.
Yeah.
So it's been said on another site that our radioactive tritium level is somewhere around 5,000 right now. I don't know, I'm the public, I can't see anything.
Oh,
Because it has not been
well,
made public.
Let me go ahead
Hey,
and
Greg,
address.
before you go to that question, I
Yeah.
want to, since we're closing out the REBA issue, I do want you to know, maybe we're not moving as fast as you would like, but I do want you to know, as Roger said, we're very interested, we're very concerned. we are doing things. We, the NRC, is doing things. The licensees are doing things. Dominion's doing something, as you pointed out with, I guess, Millstone and Connecticut. So we're all doing things, maybe at not the speed that everybody wants to do, but we are taking it seriously. We're looking at it. We've got your questions, very good questions. And again, I'm still getting educated on it myself. I think the U.S. is getting educated on it as we're going along. But there'll be more to come, and I'm looking forward to the June report too. Okay, I'm sorry. Just wanted to close that out and make sure that
Yeah.
So
Well,
Erica-
it's
okay.
an ongoing dialogue.
Right.
it will be. It will be.
Yeah. So you're concerned about the effluent report. So the annual meeting of North Dana is tied as a summary of the end of cycle that occurs in January in the region office. So, and we're required to, in a certain amount of time, have these meetings for the public. So what this meeting is a summary. We open it up because of North Dana's performance, we can do this open session of just open question and answer. Other utilities or other resident offices will have a more formal structure where they'll go through the slides and say this is their performance this year and list it all. They had a handful of non-cited violations I mentioned of very low safety significance, so we open it up for major questions, which I think is more valuable anyway. This meeting again is tied to that end of cycle report. It's not tied to the effluent report. Would it be good for the effluent report to come out before this meeting? Yeah, I think so. But the requirements for the effluent report are such that the licensee's not required to release it. They have until May 1st to release it.
Well, hence the reason why possibly the meeting should be after the public has
Right,
the
but see,
availability
now you
of the
start
report.
reading, we have to do the meeting in a certain time frame, and the effluent report has a certain time frame, and what is starting to happen is we have to have this public meeting before the effluent report.
It just seems like it's a disservice.
Understand.
to the
Well, let
public.
me try to help you with that, because this is an important thing to understand about the effluent report. The effluent report is not what you would call a document of first reporting if there was a problem. Okay. They do quarterly. They do monthly tests on some of the wells for tritium and other isotopes, and they do, they're sampling all year long. Part of our process also is they do performance indicators, and one of them is the RETS ODCM, that's radiological effluent tech specs, if there was an occurrence. So they have tech specs of certain limits of effluents that they're allowed to have that can be released and not released. If they go over that, and obviously they're very low levels, they have to report that to the NRC, and that's done on a monthly basis. So there's indications there. If there was, say, a large increase in, say, tritium concentration in a well, they're required to perform an addendum for that effluent report that would come out prior to the next year. I mean, it would be an addendum that would be reported at that time. And then finally, as a resident inspector, any increases off nominal of effluent discharge or detection, they have to capture. It's a condition adverse to quality, and they have to capture it in what are called condition reports. And one of my jobs every day is to go through and read the condition reports every day to take a look for such things as that. So the answer, what the bottom line is I can understand your desire for it to be out before this public meeting. It would be good, because then we'd be up to date. Because right now, you asked the same question last year,
All right.
and the effluent report came out a month later, and what it said was there was no change.
Well, actually, there was a change, because
Well-
for years, we got up to as high as almost 80,000 people curated.
Agreed. Well, things are
And-
beginning
and
to
so-
level off, right?
But y'all could never answer the question last year, did you fix it? And if you did, what was the issue or what was fixed? And
Well,
so now I can't
unfortunately,
see the
I
report
was
for last
new. I
year.
was new to I
Right.
was at month
But I'm just
number
saying I
3.
never
So I
found
can give you the
out.
answer to that now because
Okay.
that was a good question, and I went back and I
Right.
found out. So essentially, if there was anything in that year up till now that was a step increase of effluent discharge or concentrations that were detrimental, they would be reported. They'd either be reported in the CRs, which I'd capture, or in the performance indicators, or in an appendum that would be to last year's effluent documentation.
Well, I'm
So barring any of that,
Mhm.
you can probably, unless you hear of those kind of conditions, then although the document isn't released yet, you can probably reasonably assure that there haven't been any major changes in the effluent. And I know it's in review right now and it's going to be released by May. I have no indication. I had no indication that when I read that document, I'm going to see anything that captures my eye because, first off, I'm watching for any indications through the year as your resident inspector. I'm watching the performance indicators. In addition, we have RAD protection teams that come out from the region that do inspections during the outage, 1 year and 2 year cycles, that go over the data to verify that what they're reporting is accurate. So,
But you're also not seeing when they're taking vegetation samples and that sort of thing, which for like
Understand.
4 years, it was like the farmer was sick, the farmer died or couldn't get on the property, and then it came up, well, we mean you couldn't take one vegetation sample the
well,
whole
yeah,
year.
I can't
So that's the kind of stuff, information that's on this report
understand.
that I'm mentioning why it's important for me to be able to have
Understand.
access to
And
that.
those are valid questions of why that isn't and what the requirements are. That would I'd have to reflect upon what the requirements are for the sampling rate. for
Hey, Greg,
those
can I
kind of
interject?
things. Yes, sir.
Because I've had you talking to me for the last 2 days explaining this to me. Let me help.
Okay.
So one of the benefits of being the new guy is I come in with fresh eyes. So really love to get the phone call from you because that lets me know what is important here. So since you mentioned the affluent report, I started digging, looking for it. Asked Greg. Greg tells me, I'm like, well, what if I didn't believe you? So I start verifying on my own. Talked to licensee, talked to our RP guys back in the regional office, the experts. So I really want you to know I appreciate the comment because then that let me get to speed really quickly on something that I wasn't had a lot of experience or education in. But I've had Greg talking to me for the last 2 days on what this means and why it's okay. So let me try to explain it to you in non-nuclear. I wasn't raised up in nuclear, so I'm the new guy. So basically, when I started looking at this, this report basically is just a data capture from all the. And you mentioned quarterly data to me on the phone, so I looked into that. There's not public quarterly data, but the licensee does collect it quarterly. They actually do monthly samples on some of the wells. If those monthly samples or the quarterly samples, if any of those are over a minimum level, which is well below the EPA level, which is an NEI established level, Nuclear Energy Institute level for guidelines. If any of those are over, they retest. If the retest comes back, it was not an anomaly, then they follow the process. This is he mentioned CR, it's condition report. So licensee has a corrective action program. It gets put in there as a condition adverse to quality. Boom, that shows up with Greg because our resident inspectors review that every day.
Every day.
Look at all the new ones. That would trigger him to look at it.
Well, that's why I'm saying we had for years, we had this problem with tritium, and that's why I'm saying it might have issued a report or this, that, or the other, but we still ended up with years of a tritium issue that fluctuated from 30 to 40 to 50 to 60 to almost 80,000 picocuries, and then supposedly someone fixed something because all of a sudden last year, it got down to below 900 picocuries or whatever.
Mhm.
But at the end of the year, it started upticking again. Got to 40,100 and that's it. That's it for the report. So I don't know what it looks like today. Does it look like 10,000? Does it because that's still fine under the guidelines
Right.
of under 20,000 picocuries, but it shows that there's still a problem. This is what I'm asking.
Let me
is
help.
if, without seeing that, I can't see if we're still ticking up again.
I saw the same spike you saw. So I said, what is this?
Mhm.
So I looked into it. Found out that the licensee did a presentation for, I want to say some type of county meeting or county official meeting. Maybe
Oh, right here, yeah.
yeah, I guess it was here.
All right.
So I got to look at what was presented there. They presented that they did identify what was causing it to increase. It was legacy issues and some leaks in some of the piping. Those were fixed. So as expected, it trended back down. This little spike at the end, maybe I didn't notice. So
It'll be interesting
I'll
to
look
see.
into that too now,
It'll be
but-
interesting to see the report, but it would be interesting to know exactly what was fixed, because it seems like Dominion over the years, document after document, a lot of relief requests, which are granted.
Right.
On a regular basis, there's, amendments, exemptions, etc. I mean, and even here recently, we've got some relief requests for examinations.
Yeah.
Where basically they're not going by the code. So here we have these ASME codes, but then they come behind it and say, oh, well, we're not going to do that because they're going to get a hardship. So Dominion constantly, and this reactor, this plant, just like Surrey, on a regular basis gets these relief requests where they don't have to follow code. So you sit there and go, okay, well, why do we have code that if then they don't even have to follow code, or they get these exemptions where they don't have to cover 100% coverage on these tests, 60% here, 70% here. Oh, well, we'll just plunk them together, so now we've got 80% covered, good enough.
Okay.
Well, it's not good enough, though.
So we're
That's
moving
the
from,
thing.
before we move from tritium, I like to close it out.
Right.
So
Well, that's what I'm saying, because there's multiple issues that are going on here that I'm concerned about.
Are we understanding the tritium thing? And then I would like to speak
Well,
to
I
the
would
code
like
issue.
to know exactly what was fixed.
Well, allow me to make an invitation that when the new report comes out, and I'm just as excited to see it as you are.
Okay.
You have my number, call me and we can talk about it.
Well, when you get that report, you'll get it before me, so I should.
And actually, it
I'm
could
sure
be-
you'll get it before I will, because you're
only because it gets reported to me the minute it hits our Adams line.
Yeah, just because he'll get an
You know
email
how
once
hard
it's
it is
made
for the
public.
public to maneuver around in
Yeah, you know
Adams?
how hard it is for
How about this? How
us
about,
to maneuver.
how about this? When it, how about
That
this?
sounds like a problem.
That's great. When it's issued, we'll send it to you.
Okay,
Yeah,
yes, I would
it'll
like
be
that.
sad, simple. We'll send it to you. I have your email, and I'll be happy to.
We
send
got it.
Okay, I think that
Can I
would
speak
be
to the code
good.
issue? Since you brought that up, that's interesting too.
What's that?
The code issue that you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting you mentioned it from, again, I get to see a bunch of different perspectives.
Right,
So it just dawned on me that the perspective that you're bringing may be that what it looks like is just rubber stamping willy-nilly, anything they ask for, we do kind of thing. But I also spent some time in headquarters in one of the, as a project manager in the technical review branch in new reactors for construction side. But I was, I guess, not to say surprised or shocked, but felt good when I left there, knowing how rigorous and how detailed, how thorough each and every request is. There's RAIs, help me.
Request for additional information.
Request for additional information. They go back and forth of, hey, this number doesn't look right, or you said this, is this right? And then, so then they get poured into by experts.
oh, I understand,
And
because
actually, Sam is.
I appreciate that, because I attend meetings on the phone and other meetings with the NRC and with the licensee.
Relief is not indiscriminately given out. There's a
Well,
lot that
No,
goes
but
behind
then
it.
when we say it's a hardship, and then it's never explained to the public exactly what that hardship
That may
really
be a fair,
is.
that may be a fair complaint.
So what is
That's
the
something
hardship?
that needs to be addressed by the NRC.
That's a very blanket thing. And I can appreciate that the NRC does, with the licensee, ask more questions than RAIs. But I've also been on the calls when they allowed information, like with dealing with earthquakes, to use information from California and use it here. So I'm skeptical sometimes when we say how robust we are about things, and especially when it comes to these inspections, where why aren't we requiring what the ASME code would be more complete coverage of inspections? I mean, to me, that's an issue. We've got aging nuke plants here. They exceeded the design basis on our earthquake, which brings me to one of my last questions would be, in this past 12 months' time, we've had at least 9 earthquakes,
Sure.
and 4 have been located in Louisa County.
Mhm.
How many have showed up on the North Anna radar?
So that's a good question, because I noticed just the most recent one. Right now, the seismic monitoring at North Anna can measure up to 0.01 G displacement, which works out to about a 4 on the Richter scale.
Is that, why so high?
Because, why so
I mean,
high?
why not, why is it not more sensitive?
Because 4 and below is of moderate capability and certainly is well within the seismic design of the plant. Your seismic instrumentation wants to capture the large quakes, right? The beyond design basis if you have them. So that's where it is, and that's what's acceptable, and that's my understanding of the why.
Wow.
The other way it can be identified and tracked is if the operators actually feel ground motion.
People in Louisa County felt ground motion with these last.
We
earthquakes.
felt nothing at North End.
Well, I mean, I know after our 5.8, we installed a free field scratch.
Mhm.
Are you telling me that thing didn't pick up?
We
any of
did
those-
not, they did not.
Maybe it's
feel-
not sensitive enough.
Well, maybe, and you know, again, I'm not the expert on
Okay,
seismic,
well,
right?
that's the first I've heard about it.
But that, they
4.0.
can measure down to about the 4.0.
Let us, yeah, let us.
We'll track
Let's
up on that
verify
a little
that.
more.
Again, I'm coming behind Greg, and Greg's got all the answers, but I'm making proof
But,
things to me a
yeah,
lot.
I mean, yeah, I mean.
Because a
we'll
lot
prove
of
it.
times it's a foreshock.
That's what I've been informed from my questions with the license.
Mm-hmm.
They may be able to pick up more, but right now, they have a procedure of reporting earthquakes that they follow, and that there was, in the most recent one, there was insufficient ground motion measured and or felt by operating crews to have it reported.
Oh, I'm sorry, I did forget to ask one question, because I know on one of this relief requests, we're talking about using is it a preening of the hot leg? There's
Yeah.
some kind of relief request, June, relief request, in-service inspection, that's revisiting summary. No, it was, yeah, something to do with the requirements similar to similar metal welding using ambient temperature, temper bead techniques. So exactly what are we going to do? We're going to,
I'd have to see the exact, what that is. If you can give me the number and let me look it up.
okay, yeah, because evidently they're going to use a different technique other than what the ASME code
I
is.
understand.
And
Well,
so I was curious on,
perhaps we'll, yeah.
like I said, it's another relief request.
Well,
so-
let me know what the relief request is, and I'll take a look at it.
Okay, I'll send it to you.
Thank you. We've kind of reached the end of our time,
Oh,
and I do appreciate the questions. Erica, it is a pleasure to see you, and you know, we do hope that we are responsive to your questions and information requests. And I just open again up to the forum if there's anyone who has any closing comments for this evening.
anybody else have any questions? Anybody sneak in?
And please, if you sign the sheet we got for participants, so before you leave. I saw you come in. I was like,
Well, in that
That's
case,
me. Like,
Uh,
those emails.
until next year, we'll close this meeting. I appreciate your time and attendance at the meeting.
Thank you.